In the discussion today, we have Wayne Carter. Since 2015, he's been retired as an assistant district attorney in the 10th Judicial District. This guy's resume is as long as my arm. It's going to be interesting.
Jerry Estes hired me as assistant DA in Cleveland, and in those days it was Bill Brown, Rebel Johnson, and me. That was it.
I've heard Rebel Johnson's name my whole life, and I've never met him.
Rebel is a good guy. I enjoyed working with him. Well, I enjoyed all three of us work together, and Rebel. We just prosecuted. I mean, if you think about three of us prosecuting all, and they have now, what, 10 or 11 people in the Cleveland office.
Why do you think they need more now? I'm sure there's not really much more, not any more crime, maybe just more red tape with prosecuting.
Well, there may be more. I don't know. I don't remember the statistics, but we were just overloaded. Rebel and I, we would almost every Sunday night would be in the office trying to get ready for the next week, because it was just, you were so backed up. And if you end up with a major case, you got to really do, like I think over the years I had more than 45 homicides. 45
in just this area?
Yeah, here and Polk and McMinn and Monroe.
In the 10th
Judicial District, yeah. But if you got to really get ready for a major case, that takes a lot of time.
Oh, I bet, because it's more crossing T's and dotting I's, I guess, right?
A lot of it, but a lot of it is interviewing people. I mean, law enforcement does a great job, but as a prosecutor, I wanted to talk to you as my witness, not just depend on what somebody else told me.
Whenever you read a story in the newspaper or see something on television about somebody getting arrested, you naturally assume they're guilty. Unless the story's about you or someone you love, then you'll think differently. And you'll want a lawyer who will defend you. My name's Scott Canavis. If you or someone you love has been charged with a crime, call me. I'll return your phone calls, I'll work on your case, and I will defend you.
We have this vision of the prosecutors being out to get everybody and that sort of thing. But you're saying you really wanted to not make sure the policeman wasn't just kind of blowing it out of proportion, maybe, or.
Well, and because they have a different role, and there's a reason that law enforcement does not work directly for the DA's office, because they're looking at facts, or should be looking at facts and drawing conclusions, but they're not lawyers. They don't read the law books, know what the statute says, what are the elements of the crime, and so they most of the times get it very right. But sometimes you got to look at and what are the facts? Do the facts support that? And as a prosecutor, and I have to say Jerry did a good job of telling us this over and again, that our job was not necessarily to win, but our job was to do justice.
Even if you came by with a back with a bad record and that sort of thing, it was okay, as long as he felt like he was doing
the best you could. Yeah, and I think one of the most significant things that ever happened that I remember was when the grand jury came back a couple times with a no bill. And we go back and review this, and why did the grand jury do that? And maybe I didn't look at it close enough. And we have the opportunity to take it back or not take it back. But it certainly makes you look at things a little bit closer.
Well, we've got a lot of checks and balances in the United States, don't we?
Yeah.
I mean, the policeman can't do it himself. The district attorney can't do it himself. The assistant district attorney can't do it himself. And the, what do you call it, where you get a true bill?
The grand jury.
Grand jury. And grand jury is just sort of made up of citizens, my understanding.
Yeah. Of course, now they just hear part of the proof on one side, and whoever's a witness in there doesn't have the opportunity to be cross-examined and those sort of checks and balances. But,
they're just saying it warrants enough to look into or something.
Yeah.
Is it true? The old saying, you can indict a ham sandwich. I guess you can, can't you?
Probably.
I forget. Who was it said that?
But who would want to?
Yeah, who would want to? But who was it said that? That was a famous saying.
I don't know. It sounded like something Mac McCoy might have
said. He was there for long. Did he come after you?
Now, we worked together at the end when we worked for Steve Bibb. And then and Steve Bibb, of course, left, and Steve Crump got hired, and we worked for Steve Crump, and I retired under Crump.
I really liked Mac. I really liked Mac, don't you?
He was my favorite human being. I went to see him a couple of weeks. You know, he's doing some at Siskin doing rehab with his back.
Yeah.
And
he had the car wreck, right?
Yeah.
With
Fisher and
don't tell me. I know him like a book. Golly, what's his name? I know him. Know him like a book. I went to Florida with him.
If you hadn't asked me like that, I'd have remembered. I'm like, it'll come to me in about 10 minutes.
I know him. Golly. He owned the sanitary food liner for a while.
Didn't know that. But
he owned it.
Among everything else
he was in the Olympics too, I think.
I knew he had something to do with it. I remember, I knew more, when he passed away, I learned more about him by reading his obituary than I really...
I bet you it was one of the longest obituaries in Cleveland.
It was a fascinating character.
Oh, I ate lunch with him. Yeah. I ate lunch with a lunch group, and he was in there.
Yeah.
Why can't we think of his name?
Because we were on the board together at the Y.
Yeah.
And
I went to Florida with him.
Yeah.
To Mar-a-Lago with him.
I can imagine.
Golly.
It'll come.
It's crazy. Yeah. Well, did you in '87 when you came here? Had you been to Cleveland before?
Had not. It was fun. I was practicing law in Lebanon, Tennessee. I got out of law school in '83, and was practicing law there and enjoying practice law. And was also had and city of Lebanon had a city court, and I was the city prosecutor. One guy appointed by the mayor to, kind of like traffic court here is, I suspect. And was really enjoying it, but I wanted to be in the courtroom. That's kind of just what I wanted to do. And so I just started applying to the Tennessee Bar magazine. Jerry Estes had put in a seeking people to come, and then I just put in my resume. And Jerry invited me over to interview me. And I'll never forget the first interviews in Athens. And the drug task force was meeting, and he wanted me to come there. And I didn't know what drug task force was. I was scared to death of these people. I was on the other side.
Right.
And, grew up just sort of afraid of all that.
Yeah. From that era, me and you were in about the same era, we were sort of taught to be afraid of them, weren't we?
Yeah, I grew up in Laverne, Tennessee, which is over in Rutherford County.
Yeah.
Very small community. It's just a bedroom in Nashville now. But I think the only time I ever saw law enforcement when I grew up was about once a year during the summertime. The chain gang come by and fix the roads. And there was the guys and the sheriff deputy holding the shotgun, and I'm thinking, well, I don't want to be like that.
Yeah. Did you go to Nashville a lot? Was that where you visited a lot when you were growing up?
Yeah, mostly Murfreesboro though. That's the county seat.
Oh.
And so.
Boy, Rutherford, that was when it was really booming, wasn't it? During about 86, 87?
Yeah, well, I graduated high school in 72, and I went in the military in 73, and so came back and did law school. Yeah, it really started, it had boomed when I was gone, and just really was going.
So when you joined, were you in the reserves?
I was active duty. I enlisted in the Air Force in 73, and I was 4 years active duty in the Air Force. Got out of the Air Force, a little bit of a story. Went into the Army for another year and a half, 2 years. Then I got out and went into the National Guard, went in Desert Shield, Desert Storm, all that for about a year, and came back and then went to a reserve unit down in Alabama. And that's where I retired from the Army of in Alabama.
Did you retire as a colonel?
I did, yeah.
Is that the same? Is that the same status as an Army colonel or a
Well, it is
Marine
Army
colonel?
colonel. It is Army. It's just a reserve. Yeah.
I had Paul Renner on my podcast a couple of weeks ago. Did you know him?
I did.
He was a colonel.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. Yep, Colonel Paul Renner. Why can't we think of his name? That's driving me nuts. Roger Hanger. Golly, why couldn't we think of him?
Well, it's bad. Mac and I were in the DA's office together, and story I don't want to get into a whole lot, but we ended up having 4 tickets to this Chattanooga Symphony. Did you hear this story?
No, I hadn't heard it, but that doesn't go together. I know that.
and so we get through it. We're getting ready to end up that day, and I was single at the time, and the person that I was seeing had something that happened. She couldn't make it, and I think Mac and Ann were already going to go with us. And so I told Mac, I said, just take these 2. Go, y'all go ahead.
Yeah.
My lady friend's got something she's got to do.
Yeah.
And Mac said, we'll still go. And for some reason, Hanger comes by the office. So we ended up going with Hanger and Mac and Ann and myself to the Chattanooga Symphony. And I used to kid Hanger. I said, you were my date that night.
He was taller. You're pretty tall. He was a little taller than you,
I
wasn't
think he was a little bit taller than me, yeah.
Did you, when you was in the reserves, or the National Guard, what kind of stuff did you have to do in Desert Storm?
Well, we were in a unit called the 130th Rear Area Operations Center, and we were the 5th Corps or 7th Corps. We were their headquarters for the rear operations. If you think of the battlefield as if you hit the main lines, where all the action is going on, you're behind the enemy lines, behind our lines, and everything that comes through, it's got to be organized. It's got to be land management, so to speak. All the logistics that's going to get to it. For every soldier that's on the front line, there's anywhere between 7 and 11 people to back him up.
Is that right?
And so we managed all that, and good part of my focus on that was security. Because as much as you can think, we got our special forces in behind their lines, they got their special forces behind our lines. So you got to deal with all that stuff. And so
there's more to it than you see on TV.
Oh yeah. It was a great job. I've told some people before, I'm one of those blessed people in life that have done things that I've enjoyed. I enjoyed, ultimately, most everything I did in the Army. I've enjoyed being a prosecutor, trial lawyer. I don't know if you were aware, but I pastored a church for 8 years.
Is that right?
But you know what Foreigner, Tennessee is?
Don't tell me. Foreigner is just below Polk County.
It's
right?
in Polk County.
It's in Polk County, but it's between Polk County and McFarland.
You know where Ducktown, of course, is. You know where Tellico is.
Yeah.
It's between Tellico and...
But isn't it just a little bit lower?
Well,
if you're going from Cleveland, from Ducktown to Turtletown, it's on the left.
Well, you go past Turtletown.
Past Turtletown, all the way to Hanging Dog?
No, it's right before you get to the Monroe County line, but you're right, it's on the left.
Yeah, right.
And the only thing out there was our church and the post office.
Well, they tell me that at one time was busier than Cleveland because of the mining and maybe it was just the mining.
Mining and logging.
Logging, yeah. That it was more populated than Bradley County at one time.
I don't know. I didn't know that.
Did you ever go to Hanging Dog?
I have, actually. I hiked up there a lot. Yeah.
I wonder why they had names like that, because the Indians, I guess, at the time? Because it's Chief Turtle, right? I think.
There's Turtletown, there's Dogtown, there's Hanging Dog, all those through that little area.
So, Farner, what kind of preaching did you do?
Farner Presbyterian Church. I go to Presbyterian denomination, and our church has a 2-year study program that they want you to, you have to go through before they'll let you go speak or do something at a church. And our denomination has then, and I suspect still does, has a hard time filling the pulpit for small congregations.
Sure.
You just can't pay them. And I didn't need the money. I mean, I had a regular job, and so I was just about to retire from the Army in '08. And my pastor here, I don't know if you know Dr. Joe Tanner, who was he's retired but still around from First Presbyterian Church in Cleveland. He told me or talked to me about going into the lay pastors program. I taught Sunday school forever. And I thought, well, I'm fixing to retire from the Army, and it'll give me something to do on weekends. I wouldn't mind going in and filling in for some pastor that's going to be on vacation or something like that. Was my idea. And so I go through the program, and a friend of mine named Lawrence Hyatt, who's an elder up there, he said, Wayne, how about coming up and speaking at our church? Our pastor is going to take another church. We don't have a pastor right now. And I said, well, sure, I'll come up and speak. I went up. And, matter of fact, I went up a few days before to kind of meet some of the folks, and so I just wouldn't be totally new. And I spoke, and getting ready to leave, and a couple of elders come to me, and I thought, well, have I really messed up? And they said, well, would you mind coming back next week? And I said, well, sure. And this went on for a while, and so I ended up, they had finally come and asked me if I would be their full-time pastor, and I said, well, guys, I can't do that. I got a full-time job. I was working for Steve Bibb at the time, the DA's office, and I don't think I can do that. Let's y'all pray about this, you know. And so I went and talked to Steve, and he said, I don't think it's a conflict if you wanted to do that. I said, well, I'll go back and see what they say. Well, anyway, long story short, I ended up there 8 years.
8 years. Yeah. That's a long time to preach. Most preachers don't last but what, about 2 years at a place on the average?
I don't know that. I know the presbytery tend to stay around a while. I mean, Dr. Tanner was here when I came here, and
now I say I don't know him, but was he a kind of a thin guy?
No.
Oh, I don't know him.
No.
I think the guy I talked to was in charge of the building committee. Maybe.
Maybe.
So if you went there in 2008 and you had not, and you were just retiring from the Air Force,
the Army,
the Army, and you came to Cleveland what year?
87.
So you came here. You was working for the district. You were assistant district attorney, and still in the National Guard.
Right.
So you were pretty busy.
It was. Yeah.
How much did you, was it like you had to go weekends or during the week?
Well, generally 1 weekend a month, and then 2 weeks during the summer was the way it was back in now. I think now they're required to do a whole lot more than we were. I feel sorry for these small employers that have these guys that, because you know, the state can handle me being gone. You know, big corporations can handle me. Think about a small company. Think about if you had a couple of guys working for you and one of them had to be gone that much.
It'd kill us.
Yeah.
It'd kill us. Somebody get mad because we weren't there.
Yeah.
Because you don't have that many people.
Yeah.
But you don't see that many people that have to do that on weekends anymore for some reason. I remember growing up, there was a lot of people that went 2 weeks in a year. They had they had a name for it, didn't they?
Well, it was called summer camp.
Summer camp, and then they had to go once a month for a whole weekend.
Yeah.
Could you choose the weekend, or was it set?
No, it's pretty set.
So you had to really schedule that.
You have to have a schedule. Yeah.
Do you think a schedule is what made? Because you were at one time had you already retired when you started preaching that stint?
I had retired from the Army part. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I retired from the Army in '08, and then I retired from the DA's office in '16.
You have had a full life, haven't you?
I have been blessed. I have, absolutely.
Did you drive all the way to Farner on Sunday mornings and Sunday nights?
Yeah.
How long does it take to get there from here, would you say?
It was not too bad, but if you remember, in the middle of that is when they had the road closed for about a year and a half.
Yeah, what'd you do? Did you go Kimsey Highway?
Through Tellico.
You didn't do Kimsey Highway, right?
I no. I've been down that once.
Yeah. You couldn't do that all the time.
No. And I would go up after about 6 months. They had a house also up there. And so I would go up most of the times, either late Friday night or early Saturday morning, so I could be up there. And one of the greatest experiences of my life, I got to know the guy that was the pastor of Turtletown Church of God. The guy was pastor of Church of God Prophecy, and is a Methodist guy. I can't remember the name of that little church. But anyway, we ended up starting to get together on Saturday mornings and just praying for each other and praying for our congregations and stuff. Some of the best friends I had. And what we noticed over the years, and this went on for 7 or 8 years, we had so much more in common that we had differences. Just great guys. Great
there's not much a whole lot differences.
I remember one time that, and we would have our get together, and after we'd have our discussion or prayer meeting, they'd get into discussion. And I'm a lawyer. I'm not a trained seminary. These guys are seminary trained, smart people.
Yeah.
And the Church of God guy and the Church of God of Prophecy guy get into a discussion. And they're not really smart enough to know what they were talking about, but they were talking about where one of them was post-millennial and one was pre-millennial. And I don't know the difference.
You didn't know the difference.
I don't know the difference. And I'm just listening.
Yeah.
And so they look at me and say, Wayne, what do you believe? And I'm fumbling around. And the Methodist guy saved me. He says, well, we're pan-millennial. So what does that mean? It means it'll all pan out in the end.
Did y'all go to a restaurant there or just somebody's house?
No, what we would end up doing, we would meet at one another's church. We would rotate every Saturday. We'd go to a different one of the churches.
Yeah, like the fellowship hall or something?
Yeah, and we would invite anybody that wanted to come, anybody in our church, elders, whatever, to come and pray with us. But it was just for the focus of prayer.
So was that a real smaller town than where you were from, obviously, right?
Yeah. The only thing in foreign, I guess, I hadn't been up here in a few years, but it was just the post office and my church. And my church actually owned the property that the post office sat on. It was.
Was it as big as the Charleston post office? Is that new one up there, or smaller?
It's smaller.
So it was just
like
the one in Tinga. Was it Tinga that blew down here a while back?
You walk in, it's almost like a trailer, but it was a little bit better than a trailer. But it was some good times. I enjoyed. I think I felt more fulfilled doing it. So those people really did appreciate, what the effort that we put in to do that.
Where do the people around there work?
Well, that's a great question. The guy that was probably the most influential was he owned a pet store in, I'm trying to think what that little town in Georgia. We weren't that far from Georgia and North Carolina. We were
Murphy? No.
That'd have been North Carolina. It's over in the Georgia area. But anyway, McHaysville, maybe. Yeah, probably. But he also had a farm and has cattle and that kind of stuff. And then there was one family that had been big in the logging. That wasn't that big of a deal when I was up there, but that's how they got there. One of them was a teacher, one of them was a nurse.
Isn't it funny that just one little mention from a guy that you kind of did out of maybe just a slight interest became such a fulfilling thing in your life?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
yeah,
that's something, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is.
We go through life and all of those things, we look back and there's 10 or 15 of those. Not just that one, but,
Yeah.
Could you ever live up there, or is that just too far?
Well, I did. In the meantime, I ended up getting married, and my wife and I moved up there when I retired. It was about a year and a half before I retired, but at that point, I was lead counsel in our office in Athens. We did McMinn and Monroe, and I could cut through and be about as quick as I could back in Cleveland.
Yeah.
but about a year and a half we lived up there, and I just enjoyed it. Absolutely enjoyed it. My wife's health got real bad, and we just decided that I needed to. I just couldn't give the time to those folks that I needed to give them, and we moved back to Cleveland in '16.
Not that long ago, really.
No.
So now, being the district attorney, was that were you a trial lawyer between the time you were you a trial lawyer before that?
Well, I was in private practice before that, and so I did try some cases.
But what kind of law were you practicing?
Just general practitioner. Yeah.
Drunk driving, speeding, all the way to divorce and whatever it was.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Did you and Jerry hit it off pretty good?
I did, and I have a lot of respect for Jerry. I have a lot of respect for all the guys that I work for. I think what I remember Jerry telling us time and time, at least me, he says, "Look, guys, do the right thing, whatever that is." And when you got somebody that's telling you to do that, it's hard to go wrong.
I've used him and his son before.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we won both times. If being a district attorney assistant is it a little bit depressing over time? To me, that might work on my psyche a little bit, because you're seeing stuff that the average person is not aware of.
We used part of what we did. We do in service with law enforcement, and I would tell the law enforcement guys every time before we would get done, is that, look, guys, this is what you just said. If you just do what we do, you will be jaded.
Yeah.
I really recommend you guys be involved in the community. Get outside the blue, get outside law enforcement, be involved in the community, be involved in a church, civic organization, something so you'll see regular folks. Because if all you see is what we did, you're exactly right.
Yeah, it'd be like living on MASH. I always think of MASH, that TV show. It just wore them all down. Yeah. And that'd be the same thing if you were just surrounded by just negative all the time.
You're exactly right.
That little church up there might have kept you
sane.
Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely. But I was lucky again, or blessed. I had 3 great kids, and when they were smaller, the girls, I coached their softball teams, and their basketball teams
in Cleveland.
Here in Cleveland. Back in the Boys and Girls Club days, and my son played a little league football out there, and we coached.
How old are they now?
Rachel, early 40s. Max is probably 38 or so, and Jessica's 35. Probably got that wrong, but
so you've been married a while. 40 years, 45 years.
Yeah, well, we got divorced in 2000, and I stayed single for, I don't know, till 13. I got remarried in 13. So, but the point of that was that there's being involved with those kids in the community. You see regular folks.
Yeah.
You just don't see,
My cousin used to be the sheriff. And he said, "Dee, you don't want to know how bad."
Who's your cousin?
Tim Gobble.
Oh, okay, yeah. I worked.
I guess, yeah, but probably the same time. He was sheriff, 4 years?
Yeah, when I came here, it was right when Lawson left, I guess. And was it Dan? Dan Gilly?
Dan Gilly, let's see.
Dan was for a while.
Dan ran against Steve. And then probably in 83 or something.
He had the guy that was a deputy, and I think at one point he was a state representative. Tall guy.
Yeah, I know him. What's his name? Eric Watson. Eric Watson.
Yeah, he was there for a while, and then Tim.
Now, when was the guy? There was another guy there that was that had worked there for a long time. A big guy, Ruth.
Oh yeah, Jim.
Jim Ruth.
Oh yeah, I don't know how I forgot.
Yeah,
Jim. Yeah.
He wasn't he there? He might have
been.
been. I can't remember. He might have been
Was he before or
Tim.
after Tim?
He might have been after Tim.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, Charlie McKenzie, you remember him?
I remember Charlie.
He used to say, "Oh, he couldn't track an elephant in the snow." He was just being.
He was a good-hearted guy.
He was, but Charlie's just being joking. You always remember he said that.
Yeah.
But do you think that can you, over the time seeing different sheriffs, did you see? And I'm just human nature. Maybe one group works more towards this crime and one works more towards that crime, or is it just the times that we're in that make things change?
Yeah, it's probably not a clear-cut answer to that, but I don't think the type of crimes and stuff that we do or have changed. I mean, I think a lot of it is what the law enforcement, whoever's in law enforcement, thinks that the community needs. I want to think that they're looking for what the community wants or needs. This whole thing of war on drugs has just been a mover in law enforcement since I've been in it, and so that's. I don't know how smart that is, but that's kind of where the politicians. Pass all these laws and get things to go, and that's what they say. And what people forget: the police and the DA and the judges. We don't pass the laws.
You're just the enforcer of it, or the police, policing it.
Legislature passes the law. Legislature passes the budget. They're the ones that So if they say that legalized marijuana is legal.
Let it go.
Let it go.
Is that coffee any good? You try it?
Pretty good for me. Yeah.
What about you, Gwen? Well, now, did I see somewhere where you had you said 46 homicide cases?
Yeah, there was. And they weren't all first degree. It's anything from manslaughter on up.
What would be classified as a homicide? What would be the least thing you could do to be a homicide?
Well, involuntary homicide.
Involuntary?
Yeah, and I'm just thinking of a case right now, and I want to make sure I don't use names.
To protect the innocent.
Right. But the guy goes out of his apartment late at night. He had a dog that was chained to a tree, and the dog started barking, and he comes out, and somebody is apparently going to steal his dog, and he shoots. Don't know who it is. Shoots that way and kills the guy.
Oh, Lord.
Well, there's no intent.
No.
All those things that go in, and that was that was an involuntary homicide. I mean, I don't think the guy had any intent to kill. But he did.
Yeah. And that's against the law. We have to be. That's a thin line, and it's just terrible.
Yeah.
I noticed that you had what they call it, death penalty qualified. What does that mean?
Well, first degree murder. There's three possibilities of the penalty for that. One is life with the possibility of parole. One is life without the possibility of parole, and there's death penalty. In order to try a death penalty case, you have to have some special training to be able to do that.
Oh, you can't just, like on My Cousin Vinny. You ever watch that show?
Yeah, that was my favorite show.
That's one of my favorite shows.
Yeah, well, I always said that was a good training film for young lawyers.
But, with that, you wouldn't have thought he had taken any death penalty qualification
and
class.
it may be different in Mississippi or Alabama.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Wherever he was.
Well, it was the best scene when she said because a 1967 doesn't have rear axle differential.
Whatever that was.
Boy, she was a good actor, wasn't she?
Yeah.
So you would have to take not only a law class, like me in the construction business. I'm a general contractor, but to work on mode, you'd have to have some other credential. I guess that's the way it is.
Well, in the state of Tennessee, there's no specialties in the law as far as civil, criminal. That's with these commercials you see. These guys say that I'm board certified. There's no such thing in the state of Tennessee.
Yeah.
But there is a requirement for death penalty cases.
So what would the training look like? I mean, what would be the?
Well, part of the training had to do with making sure you understood what to look at for mitigating stuff for an individual. For example, there was a guy that we had up in Polk County, and the question of guilt or innocence really, I mean, no question the guy did it. There were a bunch of witnesses. And of course, whether or not it was premeditated, that's another issue. But the second part of a criminal trial is the punishment. But in the death penalty case, it's bifurcated. You have a guilt or innocence, what the jury does. Once they find him guilty of first degree, then almost have a second trial, or you do have a second trial in regards to punishment. And so the mitigating evidence, all the stuff that his history. What was his educational background? What's his social background? Was any medical issues or mental health issues? All
was
those
he on
things
medication
that may not be relevant in the trial of it as far as guilt or innocence becomes. So you almost have to have a social workers type look at that kind of stuff, and I didn't have that, and I guess some other particular type stuff and the type of jurors you might want to look. Some questions you might want to look a little more deeper into people rather than just in a regular case and picking a jury.
Boy, that's all so much more complicated. I mean, that's complicated, isn't it?
For me, it was. Yeah.
Is there any states that are what would you want to call it? The least, because we're states here, and the states have different, like you say, this is a requirement here, it may not be the requirement. Like a general contractor, to get a license in North Carolina, you got to be, in a different arena than you do in Tennessee. And Tennessee's probably higher than other places. But I wonder if there's any state that you say, man, I guess it'd be the different types of crimes, but I guess that would be what it was. It'd just be all different, wouldn't they?
Yeah, and I think that we probably all go back, except for Louisiana. I think all the states go generally back to the English common law,
which is what we based our.
Except for Louisiana. Louisiana is the only state I'm aware of that goes back to the original Napoleonic Code, the French Code,
which would be more strict. Would you say?
I don't know.
That's just what it's been.
Yeah, it's just
the Napoleonic.
Yeah.
Just different.
For some reason, that's where they get their fundamental background for their state laws was the Napoleonic Code.
So other than that, everybody's pretty much came from the European model.
Yeah, sort of. Mm-hmm.
Did you ever just say, man, all this. I mean, have 3 death cases in a row, and you just, ugh.
Now, the cases that got to me more than the death cases were the child molestation cases.
They had to give that to somebody else. I just couldn't.
And that's what one thing that I did tell Jerry just a year ago. I said, when we first got here, an attorney would have been assigned to those type cases because they were really specialized in regards to dealing with, the child witness.
Yeah, right.
And they had to have, some special training, at least I did, in dealing with child witnesses. And the Department of Children's Services and the Department of Human Services are all part of that. And a lot of times have more involvement in that than law enforcement does because they're the ones that will see that stuff and then bring it to attention. And so we would have an attorney that was assigned in the North and the South District part of the district to do those cases, and I did those for like 2 or 3 years. And I mentioned to Jerry, and I guess he did. I said, you don't need to have the same person doing this forever.
You'd be jaded, as you said.
I was, yeah, absolutely. I had 2 daughters, and I didn't want them sitting in my lap. Because you just think about that kind of stuff, and you get over it. But it's just
it's just staying under that sort of a cloud all the time.
Yeah.
And then you got to say this too. Well, if somebody's accused of it and they're not guilty, I guess that's worse.
It is. I spent some years in the PD's office in between my stints with the DAs, and had a case like that. His life was ruined, and it was, they ended up dismissing the case after we got an investigation done and we got into it, and because it wasn't there.
After he had lost 50 friends in his house and everything.
Wife, everything.
Golly.
Yeah.
Like the movie The Fugitive.
Yeah.
Wasn't guilty.
Yeah. So you got to be very, and I go back and I have to say, not only Jerry but Steve Bev and Steve Crump always said do the right thing. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that's not easy.
Because you're dealing with 2 sides to everything.
Yeah. And you got these child victims over here. Well, all of a sudden, you're real protective of them.
Sure. Yeah. You assume.
Yeah.
Because you're already sympathetic.
Yeah.
That'd be a job for somebody else, not me.
That was the toughest part of the job. Dead body didn't bother me. Children bother me.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah.
That's the worst thing.
Yeah.
Now, when somebody gets arrested, I had somebody that told me I was going to have assisted. They said, ask the question, what happens after a person is arrested? What's the process?
Yeah, that's one of the things that's you worry about a little bit, because I can go sign an affidavit and have you arrested for something.
You can say, I hit you.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
They hadn't talked to Gwen yet to say, I didn't hit you.
Yeah, and have you arrested and have
me arrested.
Bond, and all that kind of stuff.
They bring a smart aleck policeman, and he thinks I'm smart aleck, and we don't get along, and he's Terry searching me. Next thing you know, I'm standing on Emmons Street, and he's frisking me, which happened.
That sort of thing is how easy it is to have someone arrested is a bit of a concern. I don't know how you get by that.
I don't either. Did you ever read Franz Kafka, The Trial? You had never read The Trial for Franz? Well, anyway, you need to as a form of entertainment. It's really good. It goes into that was over in England or France when they didn't have to tell you what you were being convicted of.
Or charged with.
So the guy was just he ended up committing suicide because he didn't know what he did. Yeah. It might have been a mistaken identity or whatever.
Yeah.
But the way it reads, maybe he was guilty and denied it himself. So you never really knew.
Yeah.
But you could go in and say they said I hit you. The police come. Whatever. They arrest me.
I do a little defense work now, mainly when friends of mine, children, get in trouble.
Yeah.
And they're adults too, by the way.
Yeah.
But I was over in Lebanon, Tennessee this week, defending a young man, and it was not a big deal. Mm. It was a disturbing the peace, public intoxication,
yeah.
19-year-old kid.
That's what 19-year-old kids do.
Yeah. But anyway, so I read the affidavit, and the affidavit simply says that the law enforcement got called to the scene, and I think it was the square, and there was some disturbance at the square. Mm-hmm. And so they get there, and according to what the affidavit says, that my client is sitting in his car. The officer goes up to him and says, were you causing the disturbance? Mm-hmm. He denies it. Mm-hmm. That should have been it.
That should have been it.
But he says he smells alcohol. No, he doesn't say. He said he pulled him out, did a horizontal gaze nystagmus test. That's a test where they look at your eyes, and arrested him for public intoxication, all sorts of stuff.
Where's the?
And my guess is that the young man was probably a smart aleck, and it probably said yes sir or no sir. He probably wouldn't have been there in the first place.
Maybe, but some of these policemen, I'll be honest with you, they can set you off.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just driving down the road, minding your own business, trying to get to the bathroom or trying to go to the store.
Yeah. So anyway, that.
But usually those. Yeah, but so you get arrested.
So he got to be arrested. He had to make a bond. Didn't have to hire me because I went over because I know his dad real well.
Well, he would have had to
He
hire
would have had to
somebody.
hire an attorney.
Yeah.
And all that.
But still, you got to. That would be then sent to, in theory, the district attorney's office.
Once the arrest happens, it'll start out in the general sessions level, and it'll be set for a hearing day in general session level, and if it can be resolved at general session level, it can, because in the general sessions only has jurisdiction to finally resolve a misdemeanor. They don't have jurisdiction to resolve felonies. So if it's not resolved in general session level, then it goes through the grand jury into criminal court, and there you are.
$20,000 late? No, more than that, probably, right?
Yeah, good.
And I'm like you. I don't know how to solve that, because if you can't give the police the right to do a little investigation, I mean, he heard there was a disturbance.
He had a right to be there, and he got a call to go, and he should have been there.
Guys passed out in the car asleep. He might be acting. He didn't know he was asleep.
Yeah. Well, my guy wasn't asleep. He was sitting there.
Yeah.
But he didn't see him cause the disturbance. He wasn't causing the disturbance. He denied causing the disturbance. No witness that says this is the guy that was causing the disturbance.
You know, one Sunday morning, I was building a building down in Chattanooga, big building. And so I would go down there on Sunday mornings about 6 o'clock in the morning and check the job out, because it was quiet, it was cool, and I could drink a cup of coffee. Nobody's bothering me. I could just walk around. So I was coming back on, let's see, what was the name of that road? Anyway, it wasn't Gun Barrels on the other side of the interstate. I guess it's Lee Highway. And I was coming back, and a trailer was in front of me in a car, and they just going so slow, getting out of the road. So I just eased over into the suicide lane and went. It's 8:30 on a Sunday morning. There's nobody around. Well, the police pulled me over. And one of them stayed in the back where you could not see him from the rearview mirror. That is some kind of a tactic they've got.
Well, part of that, you got to put yourself in their position too, is safety. They never know what they're going to come up on. And so what if you had been a bad guy and had a gun and all that kind of stuff? So they just never know.
They never know. I get that.
Yeah. Another thing
but I'm always like this.
Right.
I roll my windows down and I go like this.
Yeah.
And I obey every order. Yeah. And when you can't see somebody in the rear window, but these guys were wearing sunglasses, and it was 8:30 on a Sunday morning. You could tell they were really feeling tough. Anyway, I got out of that. I got out of that one somehow. But
well, the thing I used to tell these officers during this in-service training, guys, the most important thing you can do at the end of the shift, go home to your family.
Mm-hmm.
They do. I mean, those guys.
Oh, I get it. I get it, because you don't know, and not only that, but they could just say you did something.
Yeah.
Woman could say he stopped me and touched me or something.
Oh,
so they've got all kinds of problems.
I think the greatest thing that we ever come up with was these body cams, and I've told those guys sometime before they had them, I said, if I were you, I'd buy me one of these things. Now they've furnished them. Because I'd want, like you're saying, I want someone to say I didn't do anything.
Right. Because you'd have to worry. Even if you didn't, you'd have to defend it, because that's as bad as the guy that was accused of child molestation or whatever. So it's bad on both ends. I don't know the answer. I don't know.
Yeah, it's issues that we have. There are problems, but I'm like you. I don't know. I can't think of a better system. We're not perfect, but
you can't sit down and come up with a better system, even if you don't like it.
Yeah.
You just can't come up with one, as bad as it is. Have you seen that guy on TV that walks into these public places and takes videos of them, and it gets them mad, and they run him off, and then he sues the whatever government building it is, and he gets, I forget what that guy's name is. It's real interesting to watch him do that. I don't like, pushing the limits like that, but
what's the point? Because whoever's working in that office, whatever governmental office it is, they're just people like you and I. And they make some mistake and judgment from time to time. They're just trying to do the best they can do.
They're just wanting to go home like everybody else.
Yeah.
Do you see yourself as if you was to describe yourself in one word, would it be an attorney, a prosecutor, a preacher, or an army man?
Am I limited to those?
Yep.
Well, I made my living as a prosecutor.
Currently.
Well,
you're yeah, that's what you are now. Even still.
Yeah, and that was my main source of income. The Army was something I did because I felt a call to duty to do that sort of thing.
Do you feel like you spent most of your adult life, as a prosecutor or in the Army?
Well, I spent probably more years. If you count all the reserve time that as a year, not just as in total time, but I spent 34 years in the military and 30 years with the state. So more it was in the Army. So
it's getting. So you're in a lot of sense you're more Army maybe.
You ask my kids, they'd probably say that.
Do you have a lot of organization you learned in the Army?
Yeah. Oh, and I think that was. If I was successful at all, it was probably because of that. Because I'm not any more intelligent than the average guy here, and I didn't have any money, and so it had to be organized. And like I said, when I first came here, it was just Rebel and Bill Brown and myself. If we weren't organized, it would have been total chaos. So you had to really keep the files, and you think you learned a lot of that from the military, or did you have it before you went to the military? A lot of it in the military. The guy that I started practicing law with over in Middle Tennessee was really organized, and learned a lot from him. William Farmer, now deceased. But the Command General Staff College in the Army was a big deal. Taught a lot of organizational skills in Command General Staff College. Did they teach you anything more than just files, way to file stuff, or is it really go into is there more tricks to being organized than maybe I would even realize? Well, it's a system, and like any other system is good and bad, but you got to go by the system, because when I'm not there, the other guys got to know how I've done things, how I've done it, and why I've done it, and so the system sort of helps that. But Command General Staff College, it was a 2-year study program, and I think it taught me more how to use staff and to really utilize, let people do their job. Don't micromanage. When I had a battalion command, I think the reason we were so successful in a battalion is because I allowed my people to do their job. And I allowed them to make mistakes. How you do it and I do it may be different, but if you're doing it your way, you got ownership of it. And so you're going to want to do it more. And so Command General Staff College taught me that. I was setting a tub one time in a house, and I had them take it out 2 times and reset it. One of my guys that was smart, that stays with me a lot, he said, Dee, he said, half the people like it this way and half are like it the other. We need to leave it the way it is. Yeah. So, because you're going to mess the other up. Yeah. But so is that part of giving,
how do you know what they're doing? Is that where the meetings come in, I guess, or monitor, or what?
Your meetings, staff meetings. Well, how's it going? If you're planning, an operation that you're wanting to attack point A. Okay, it's not just sending guys out to attack point A. Okay, how am I going to support them? What can I do beforehand? Can I get the artillery on it? Can I get the Air Force on it? Can I do something before they get there? And once they're in there, how am I going to feed them, fuel them, and keep all that going? How am I going to maintain the tank when it breaks down? So that's a lot of stuff that goes on in there.
In other words, you're paying somebody to do a job, and you don't want them wasting their time doing stuff that you could do for them.
Yeah, and I want them to be successful. The biggest thing I had from my staff, I wanted to see that person get promoted to go somewhere else, because it meant that he was doing good, and it was did me good to see him do good.
So would you say that? I mean, you're retired you've been retired since what, 2015?
16. Yeah.
So what do you do? A lot of legal work, prosecution work, or?
No, they ain't prosecuting. They do some defense work now. Not a lot.
Like you got 100 cases or 2?
No. Last year, I think I may have had 6 or 8 cases. Not a lot. I teach a Sunday school class that I absolutely enjoyed, and I get to spend a lot more time doing that now than I used to. I ended up preaching somewhere about once a month. Somebody needs somebody to come in.
The 6 cases, where do you get them? Just friends and families and old customers?
Most of them's court-appointed cases here.
So you can.
Yeah, most criminal cases are appointed to the public defender's office, but sometimes there's a conflict. Let's say us 3 people involved in a crime, and the public defender appointed you, but they can't represent both of us, because I might want to go, tell off on you, and that would put them in a conflict. So if there's those kind of things, will be a conflict.
I see.
So most of the cases have been here. I've had actually some in Monroe County, but same district. Every now and then, a friend of mine from Middle Tennessee will call me, "Hey, my son," I come look at it.
So Leon, what's his name? The guy.
Leon Shahan.
Yeah. So he's the guy that would hire you to do some random.
No, the court's appointed.
Oh.
Yeah. If I get generally Judge Freiberg or Judge Donahue.
Yeah. Well, you've been successful, haven't you? And low key.
I've been blessed.
You stay out of the political realm, and you just stay a little bit under the radar.
I've been accused of that.
Why is that you do that?
Just not intentional. Just do my job.
Maybe that's from the military too.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't have somebody doing a job for you and you continue talking to them. You just try to help support them.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the same thing. You just stay out of politics and kind of stick to your own politics and your own religion and let everything else do their thing.
Yeah. Again, I think back on the 3 DAs here. I worked for the DA's office in Nashville as an investigator when I was in law school, and the DA over there. You hear stories, but these people I've worked for have been just good people and said, "Look, we just want you to do your job." I've never.
Well, you figure these people, all the DAs, you figure they didn't get there by accident. They're not going to get me to be the DA or a criminal. So they didn't get there by accident. There got to be something. They got to be okay.
Well, they were elected. They're elected official.
Right.
At least in the state system.
You have any other hobbies?
I like to hike. Don't do as much as that I used to.
Are you in that group that hikes?
I'm not in any group. Me and
Just
my
go.
dog.
You go out of town or work somewhere?
I like to go Fall Creek Falls area. Then I think probably everything over in Polk County in that area, and I used to hike up a far in that area. I hadn't been up there in years. Over near Mont Eagle, and that Savage Gulf area, over Spring City, a bunch of stuff there.
Me and George went on that thing where you hiked out. Was it Beach Bottoms maybe?
Yeah, Beach Bottom over in between on the Polk County, Georgia line.
Yeah, and you just walk for like 10 miles, and it opens up to about 100 people swimming in a pond.
Yeah. Yeah.
Boy, it's beautiful up there.
It is good. I don't think I'm up to that anymore.
What is that, 5 miles in and 5 miles back, I
Sounds
believe?
about right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wore sandals and my shins were hurting for a
Wrong
month.
decision.
That was a bad decision. I'd like to do that again sometime.
We used to go up to Mount LeConte once a year up here in the Gatlinburg area and do that and spend the night. I enjoyed that. I had open heart surgery in 2019, and so it's not as much as I did. I can do 4 or 5 miles now, but I'm not going to do anything much more than that.
I had a guy on that did the Dean Fletcher. He did the Appalachian Trail.
Dean's still around.
Oh yeah, he lives in Cartersville, I believe.
Okay, yeah.
But he did the Appalachian Trail. Wrote a book, had a pictures.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, it's real interesting.
Yeah.
And he's an interesting guy.
Yeah, he is.
But he walked the whole thing. I did 4 nights and 5 days. I forget where it was. I went somewhere. I forget. But I'd worry about getting sick out there, or snake bit or something, and you can't get a hold of anybody.
Yeah. 2018, my son and I hiked the Grand Canyon. It was a 3-day,
Where'd you start?
4-day, 3-night backpacking thing.
See, 4 day, three nights.
Started in the North Rim and went down and went up to the South Rim.
What
But we
town
had a guide, though.
What town did you start in?
There wasn't no town.
Where'd you go into Arizona or?
We spent the night in Flagstaff and met the guy, the guy that was kind of our guide, and they gave us a ride around to the North Rim.
Well, that would be. Would that have been Sapporo? You know where Sapporo is? Sapai?
I remember that name, but I mean, there wasn't a town.
It's not a. It's like nothing, but they'll fly you in by helicopter. I believe that's on the North Rim. So, what was that like? Was it just you and him?
No, it's me and him, his wife, and there was a guy and his son that were from like Washington State, and there was 5 of us that.
Did you know them?
Nuh-uh.
So
no,
just
we just kind of wanted to go, and we went to this company that did that sort of thing because you got all kind of license and fees.
Yeah,
and
they
stuff
do have
to do
that.
all that stuff, and so we just did that, and so we went in and met up with them in Flagstaff, and then they took us up to the North Rim and dumped us out, and we got our stuff. And
so did you already packed before then, or they do all that for you?
Well, no, they had the stuff because you had to pack it, you know.
But would you fly into Flagstaff Airport or something from?
Yeah, I think we did
so
go into fly.
You wouldn't have taken your backpack; they would have provided.
Right. Well, you could have, but they said you had the option. I was well, I ain't gonna carry this crap on the plane.
Yeah. So, boy, that would have been something.
It was.
I bet that was really neat.
It was, and it was like the second night maybe. We were down at the bottom, and it's just like no artificial light. And
probably not a lot of wind either, I guess.
And the stars are like there. It was pretty cool.
Is there tribes that live down in the bottom?
Well, it's told, yeah.
That's what I was told. Because there's a tribe that Sapai that I was talking about is an Indian reservation. You only can get there by helicopter, I think. But so they had a car to pick you up when you walked out that far?
When we got back up on the top of the rim on the south side here, they was picked us up.
So where do you use the bathroom?
It's along the way.
That would be difficult, wouldn't it?
Well, I lost 2 toenails going,
God,
going,
I can't talk
going
about
down.
I can't talk about that.
Going down.
I can't talk about that.
Going up will wore you out, but going down just straight down for 2 days.
Did it come off while you was walking, or you mean later?
No, I was.
God.
Yeah.
Yuck.
Yeah. And think about this would have been like October of 2018. I was in pretty good shape, and I had kind of worked to stay in shape. April of 2019, I had open heart surgery. Go figure that.
Did you just have a slight blockage and they did a stent thing?
And quadruple bypass.
And you felt fine
up until it would have been April, and I was getting ready to go to hike up Mount LeConte. And so I was over in Dayton, Tennessee. You know where Laurel Snow? I was over there hiking, and it was April because it was grass cutting time, and I felt shortness of breath. And so I called my doctor up. I was in the middle of the woods, and I said, "Hey, look, I think I've got an allergy development or something. I'm getting older. Maybe I'm developing. Can I come in and maybe get a checkup?" And so she says, "Well, tell me what's going on." And I explained, I'm on the phone in the middle of the woods.
Yeah.
And she says, "Why don't you get your butt to the emergency room now?"
Oh, golly.
So
I bet you prayed all the way there.
I still didn't. I said, "It can't be that bad." And so that was like on a Wednesday, and on Friday, I'm being ripped open. I wake up, and I have 2 kids live in Middle Tennessee, and my youngest daughter lives here. And I wake up, all these tubes and stuff in me, and they're standing there. And it just dawned on me, they think I'm going to die. They come to see the ram for the last time. I just really didn't know how serious it was really until it was over with.
Well, what if you hadn't have gone? I guess you'd have had the heart attack and they wouldn't have got you there and you'd have died?
Probably, yeah.
So it seems like 4 bypasses, though, it seems like, and I know nothing about doctors and stuff, but how could they all get clogged about the same time?
Maybe
they're in there and say, "Well, we might as well get this one and that one."
Well, they were, all 4 of them were in the 90% blockages. And I was a runner, and what the surgeon told me, he said, "Why, if you hadn't been in pretty good shape, you'd have been dead by now."
I ride bicycles, and I get tired sometimes, but I'll have, I'm hypochondriac too, so I'll have.
I am more now than I used to be.
Does it make you more skittish?
Oh, not really.
Gun shy?
I can't do what I used to do. I don't have the stamina. I think maybe that's because I'm 70, and so.
You don't look 70.
Well, thank you. But no, I still go to the Y once or twice a week and swim. I do that more now than I do anything else, and I try to hit the weight room and just do light stuff. I don't do anything.
Yeah, just light. You know, if you got up every day and walked 3 miles, it'd probably be all you needed to do.
Probably, yeah. Tell you, swimming is the best thing I ever. I wish I'd have done it earlier in life because, like I said, I got arthritis now, and boy, you're talking about taking the pain off your joints and stuff. It's just to get out there and swim.
Yeah, you mean because it doesn't have an impact on your knees and stuff?
Yeah.
I don't know about that arthritis either. I don't know. Can you take ibuprofen? That help?
I do Tylenol.
How many can you take with it? Yeah.
Well, the rheumatologist has got me on some medication now. And
you go to Scenic City or where?
Yeah. And so that's really kind of working. I don't take as much Tylenol now as I did about 6 months ago.
They say that's bad on your liver.
That's why I was worried about it. Yeah.
I take one every now and then. I went to my doctor. I asked him about it. He said no. He said they're talking about people that take 5 a day.
Yeah.
So he wasn't talking about just,
well, that's what my guy said
yeah,
too.
It's not taking one or nothing like that. So
Yeah.
that's evidently your liver can handle that much.
Yeah, like I said, I just got back from my physical at the VA last week, and all my numbers were good, except I need more iron in my diet.
Yeah, well, you know, iron, my guess is that you don't use a lot of salt.
No.
See, I think that has something to do with iron.
Yeah, you know, and I think it's the Army cooking. You go to the mess hall and you eat what they got, and the Army don't cook up a lot of seasoning.
No.
So you got what you got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think was your diet bad before then?
No, no, and yeah. So I talked to the surgeon and my cardiologist now, Dr. Powers here in Cleveland. We go through that stuff, and you know, it's the biggest thing that we came up with, or I concluded, was the stress. Having the I didn't think about it at the time, but when the DA's office, there's a lot of stress.
Sure.
And Desert Storm, and the Vietnam era. After 9/11, I was gone another year, and so all that stuff builds up, and stress is a builder. It doesn't just come and go away.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. It does. It builds up the cortisone levels or something like that. So
beyond my knowledge.
Have you ever heard those stories of people that instead of having to bypass, their body will revert around it, like build a vein around it? Have you ever heard that?
I have heard that. Yeah.
Boy, that'd be borrowed time, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wonder what the doctor again. They said, well, you got 2 blockages, but you've done 2 bypasses yourself.
Yeah.
But here's the biggest question I got for you. How do you deal with retirement? Did it get to you? I mean,
Honestly, I think the first year after I retired, I was depressed. And
describe that. Like
I just nothing to do, nowhere to go, nothing
did you feel like
to do.
Did you feel like you was going broke or running out of money?
Well,
that'll play on your mind.
No, that again, I've been blessed with that. With the Army retirement and the state retirement, we live okay.
But you got to worry about 3 kids now, and are they okay?
Well, they're all worry about them. But
so it never was the money.
No, it never was the money. But I think for me, it was to be used. To be useful.
Relevant? Would you use the word relevant?
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah. And so...
Was there any of the... if you're working with the DA's office, let's face it, there's a certain amount of respect you get from that office. And so when you're out somewhere, maybe you subconsciously feel some of that. And then now you're retired. Was there some of a, hey, I used,
No, I never really felt like that we were any more special or better than...
No, but I mean, still there's a level of, you're somebody. And when you're retired, you're not that person.
Well, maybe that was it. I never thought about it like that, but maybe. Yeah. I just, one of the things that, again, I've been blessed to be able to started doing a Sunday school class again. Well, that sounds like it's not a big deal, and it's not in the scheme of things, but it forces me to study, and I study a lot more now in the Scripture than I used to prepare for those sort of things, and that made me feel more relevant. I got back on the board at the YMCA. And we do a lot of good stuff at the Y. I really wasn't aware of, or should have been. But the YMCA is not just a gym.
No, they got all kinds of stuff.
We do. We go into every elementary school in the county and provide after-school care for kids that can't afford it. Well, that's a big deal.
That's a big deal.
And that's sort of my own personal mission thing that I think that's so I've gotten a little bit more involved in that kind of stuff. We do some things at our church now that like this coming Friday, we're hosting a job fair, and a job fair at our church is focused at the underprivileged and focused also for those people that have been incarcerated and coming back in the community. So we got employers that are felony friendly that will be there, other type of services that they they might not know how to get food stamps.
You sent them to jail, now you're trying to get them a job. Go figure.
Yeah.
But did you, when you say when you retired, you sort of had, maybe depression is not the right word, maybe it's just sort of a boredom and not know what to do. So did it take a year to get over that before you got involved in other stuff?
I'd say, about,
Did you ever think, man, I got to get out of this funk?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, I think I go through it sometimes. So
Yeah.
what's the secret?
I don't know real good. For me, it was becoming more active in, like I say, my church, the Y, and those kind of things, and realizing that what I may do for the YMCA, nobody may ever not know, but if it helps one kid stay out of jail somewhere down the line, I'm good with that.
Well, and you gotta. So maybe staying busy pulled you out of it. Just staying busy,
absolutely.
or relevant. Which is it?
Both, I think, and they
Busy
go hand in hand.
I had lunch with a good friend of mine. He's 86, and real successful. You'd know who he was if I told you. But he said, I asked him, and he said, Dee, he says, when you get to retire, you have got to do something, not just staying busy, like going to the post office. You have to be doing something that your brain feels is relevant. He said, otherwise it won't work.
Yeah, I think he's exactly right. Whatever that is.
Whatever that is, it may be different to somebody else.
Yeah.
Somebody may have a handicapped child they're taking care of, and somebody have a parent they're taking care of, but you got to stay busy doing that.
Well, these half a dozen people that I've represented this year, they got a lot more attention from me now because I can spend time talking with them, getting to know them, and that's kind of.
And you're experienced, and you're enjoying it, and you're probably a half the price that the other lawyers would have had to go through the trial and error to find that you already knew.
Yeah.
So.
But I'll never forget. I don't know why I'm thinking about this. Something you said that clicked in my mind. I'm getting old, so bear with me. I was on a mission trip one time, and we were down in Brazil. We was going along the Amazon River, and what we were doing was taking medical supplies into these little villages, and we would set up a medical tent or a medical place and had involved doctors and dentists, and we'd also set up like a Bible school stuff for the kids, and at the night we'd have a little service. And we'd float in the nighttime and get to a village in the morning and get set up and sit all day, and then we'd pack up and they'd float all night to get to the next one. So one morning, I never will forget, we're coming into this village, and there's a bunch of people lined up along the shore waiting for us to come in. And there's, I don't know, 8 or 10 of us that are sitting there having a little breakfast on the boat. And the captain of the boat, who also was an interpreter for us, I never had come behind me, and and it was a non-denominational, so we had Catholic, we had Baptist, we had Methodist, we had Presbyterian, it's just different types of folks there. And we would talk about stuff, different theological stuff. And I just really enjoyed that time together. The captain came up behind me, and I never will forget, he put his hand on my shoulder, and he said, "Gentlemen, you see those people along the shore? They don't care what flavor religion you are, they're hungry." And that just resonated. That was back in the late 90s. That still hits me, is that they're just hungry.
It's almost like we're talking about the irrelevant. We get to dwelling on the irrelevant stuff. Irrelevant. Yeah. Whether so many lines between, and in other words, hurry up, eat your breakfast, and get out there and help them. That was another thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, feed them. When we think about it, we were talking about that in Sunday school this morning. When Jesus fed the multitudes, he didn't go in there and say, "Well, you're poor because you made a bad choice," or "You're poor because this happened." He didn't say anything. He just went and fed them.
they just had a line,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I don't remember in the Bible Jesus ever qualifying somebody for what they did or didn't do, or how they did it. Or I never remember that being as any qualifications.
The role model that he gave us, I think, and this is my opinion, like everybody else got them, and I could be wrong. It's a good possibility I am wrong. But if you remember the story where Jesus is gone, he's walking down the road, and there's a big crowd, and everybody's wanting to see him, and there was a little guy named Zacchaeus.
He was in the tree, right?
Yeah, so he goes and runs down to get in a tree, and it comes to find out this guy was the chief tax collector.
That's right.
He was the guy nobody wanted to be around. Mm-hmm. But if you remember when he went to see him, after Jesus went to see this guy, what he did? He said, I'm giving half of everything out to the poor, and if I've screwed anybody, I'm going to pay them back 4 times. Jesus says, that's the guy.
Zachary said that. Zacchaeus.
Yeah. Remember when you was a kid, Zacchaeus was a wee little man, Yeah. That's the example.
That's how I remember that thing.
Yeah.
But back then, they really hated the tax collector more so than that.
And this is not just a tax collector. He was the chief tax collector.
So that's one example. But I just don't see the Bible as all that strict as I used to see it.
Again, my philosophy, and I've told my kids and my grandkids, I think there's only one commandment, and that's to love. All this other stuff is telling us how to implement that command.
It's kind of like the guy on the boat, the interpreter on the boat. He was saying the same thing, wasn't he?
Yeah, exactly.
He was saying the same thing.
Yeah. So if I love you, I ain't gonna murder you. I ain't gonna steal from you. All those 10 things that we say.
Not gonna steal your wife.
Right. Yeah. So it's just tell me how to love.
Yeah. We get in business. It's hard. It's easy to separate going to church on Sunday from working and business and this and that.
And putting people in jail.
And putting people in jail and trying to, the lines, they don't get blurred, but they're absolutely separated in our mind in a weird way, right?
And I think as we get older, we start seeing how we need to do that, and it's not about where I'm going, but it's how I treat people along the way.
And maybe that's the relevance.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what we're after.
Yeah.
Let's see. I was going to tell you something else. But I don't know. Do you think that you would have been better off to keep working for a while, or you wished you'd have quit 10 years earlier?
Gosh, I don't know. That year after was tough, but now I have talked. I study. I don't mean to belabor the point, but I study the scripture more. I'm really getting more out of that now at my age than I did when I was 30, 40 years old.
Do you find that when you read the Bible over and over, you get more layers of understanding than you did
absolutely.
When you're reading it from the surface?
Yeah. I've read the Bible through, I think, 8 or 10 times now. Seriously. It's one of the things I do every year is I go through the Bible, and
do you read
every time it's different.
So you start in January reading?
Yeah.
How much do you have to read to be the end? Are you talking about Old Testament, New Testament, or just New Testament?
What I do is, you can get online and find something. Yeah. I'll just get somebody that's got here's a way of doing it. You read through this.
And so you do that?
So I just do that. Yeah.
And so was it like an hour a night or 30 minutes?
I do it in the morning.
About how long does it take to get to 365 days?
Well, what I think you could probably do it in less than an hour. But so now that I'm retired, I may go through it and I may go something hit my eye and I go research it.
I don't know if I could read the whole Bible in a year's time, though.
You could. Let me promise you something. If I could do it, anybody could do it.
Isn't it something that most people, Christians that proclaim God and everything, have never even read the whole Bible? Isn't that bizarre? They're going by something they hadn't even read.
I had not read through it until 2007.
Isn't that a shame? And I'm not saying that because I'm not, but it's a shame. We're going out here, we're changing our whole life, we're living this way because of what the Bible says, and we've never even read it. That's worse than watching CNN or Fox, depending on which side you're on.
Yeah, I hear you.
I hear you. It's crazy.
But we do that in a lot of stuff. One thing that I'm sure my grandchildren get tired of me doing this, but when they say something, I'll say, okay, now, what exactly, you use this word, what does that word mean?
Yeah.
And so many times we use words, don't even know what they mean.
Don't know what they mean.
The same way with the Bible. Yeah. I read a couple of years ago, part of what I read through was things that Jesus didn't say. And it's surprising.
It's amazing.
It's amazing.
Cleanliness is next to godliness. That's not in there. Do you know the story of Noah where all the people laughed while he was building the ark? That isn't in there.
Mm-mm. And how many of each animal was on the ark?
There was 2 of every species, right?
There was 2 is there, but he also there were more than 2 because he had the sacrifices and all that stuff. If you look at the very first, there were like 5 and 6 of some animals. So.
Have you been to that model up in
Kentucky?
Yeah,
no,
I hadn't been to. Several people were gone. Yeah. That guy, he went by the exact. Now he was trying to be relevant.
Yeah, so I don't know what a cubit was. I don't think anybody really knows what a cubit was.
Yeah, well, he figured it out. He's made it exactly the same size.
Yeah.
You think there's UFOs?
Wouldn't surprise me. I was out in New Mexico this summer and went and come across some stuff about that. And one of the guys said something to me I thought was pretty interesting. He says, if there are not aliens out there, seems like it's a lot of wasted space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we have that in the desert. There's still animals in the deserts.
Yeah.
People laugh at me for asking that question, but it's funny that 50 years ago, if you asked 10 people, 10 would have said, no, there's not. Nowadays, 6 will say probably.
Don't you think it's a bit arrogant to think that everything centers around us?
I think it's arrogant to think that we know anything.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so bizarre.
Yeah.
How do we know anything? I might as well guess how many cars are going down Oak Street right now. It's it's just a guess. You don't know. I don't know either.
Yeah.
But to claim it's another thing.
Yeah. Yeah. But one of the things that I learned from a rabbi, a friend of mine, part of some of their teaching, because you know the Jewish people have as many denominations as we do.
Sure,
but one of the things that he told me is that they believe that when God spoke things into creation, and when God speaks, it never ends. It continues to reverberate, and that's why he's explained that the expansion of the universe and getting galaxies and stuff still go on because God is not through creating.
I think maybe the Seventh. I think maybe the Seventh-day Adventists think a little bit along those lines too.
And I think, well, that's pretty cool.
It makes as much. Have you ever watched that guy on George Landgren, the smartest guy in the world? You ever listen to him?
I have to tell you, I don't watch a lot of TV. Yeah. Unless there's a football game on, I want to see it.
Well, this guy's supposedly the smartest man in the world.
Yeah.
And he gets so deep that I can't even repeat it hardly.
Oh, yeah.
He's so beyond. But he's supposed to have the highest IQ. But IQ is not necessarily, that's just the ability to focus. That's not, right? I mean, isn't that sort of a little misleading?
Yeah, and I don't know this, but I just seems like there's a difference in me having intellect and ability to apply it.
Well, the applying is what they call aperture.
There you go.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So it's.
Yeah.
So what you got going on next week?
Well, let's see. Tuesday, the Presbytery, our Presbytery has about, 60-something churches in the southeast Tennessee. It's meeting at our church here in Cleveland. Big deal.
Is that the one on the Coy Broad?
Yeah.
Where Ann Moss goes? She go there, Ted Moss? Or Ann?
No. You know where St. Luke's Episcopal Church is?
Yeah.
We're sort of behind those, or north
That's
there.
That's where she goes, yeah.
Yeah. And I think they go the same. Because
Yeah.
I enjoy going I go to this breakfast over there. You ought to come on Friday mornings.
Friday mornings.
Yeah.
Is that like the First Baptist has the lunch on Tuesday, during the day or something like that?
Yeah, I don't know. We go at 7 and we'll have they fix breakfast and we have a devotion and prayer concerns and it's non-denominational.
Oh, that's Rob Norrie.
Yeah,
Rob Norrie, yeah.
Rob.
Kim Randolph comes over there some.
Yeah, and
You know Kim?
Doughball.
Doughball comes?
Yeah, good group of guys.
Oh, yeah.
Good guys.
Rob's a great guy.
Yeah. But that's Friday. But now we got the Presbytery coming in Tuesday. I'll be involved in that. Friday we got the resource fair at church, and so that'll be that. And I'm sure I got something else going on, but I try my best. I only have one thing to do a day.
Yeah, because you can get to where if they find out a guy's got free time, they'll wear him out.
Yeah.
Are you going to do any more hiking at all?
Yeah, we hiked. I still hike. My oldest daughter lives in Lebanon, and we try to meet on Saturdays to go hike. But I've just been doing 2 and 3 miles. We met last week. We met up in Savage Gulch. Did a hike over there, and the week before that we went over to Fall Creek Falls. And
So you just do the day thing?
yeah,
Like start at what, 10 or 8?
yeah, 10 because we got to get there.
Yeah.
You know, it's an hour, 2
And
hours.
so you eat somewhere on the trail?
Well, what we'll do is hike for a couple hours, and if you go to Fall Creek Falls, they got a nice lodge up there with a restaurant, and so we ease over there, and
So you walk to the restaurant? Real tough in it, right?
it's not. It ain't. Yeah.
How many miles is it to the restaurant?
I don't know. We'll go to one of the trails, then we'll drive back over there.
You're really tough in it.
Yeah, it's not. It's not. I enjoy as much as spending the time with my kids doing it than I.
Have you ever done the Comet? The Comet in Atlanta, that's just that concrete road where you can. Silver Comet.
I've heard of that, but
I've done it.
Yeah.
Me and George did it actually.
Yeah.
Like 72 miles or something like that.
Yeah, I saw George. Oh gosh, it's been a year or two ago at Johnson's Woods. I go walk out there a couple times a week.
He used to do that a lot, but he's doing his grandkids more now.
Yeah.
George is the best.
He's a good guy. Yeah.
Well, anything else? I appreciate you
I'm
coming.
at your disposal.
I tell you what, I've really enjoyed it. I really have.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
We'll have to come back next time and have somebody here that's on the opposite end of the legal process. But you're on whichever one side's right?
Well, that's exactly right. Or whoever wants to pay me now.
That's right. You have a law degree, and you have to keep, since you got it, you got to keep it up.
Yeah.
Boy, if you ever put it in retirement, that would work on your mind.
And that was another thing that I thought about doing when I retired, because I was well, no use in me keeping this up, and you get to go continuing education every year and all that kind of stuff, and just like
there's fees.
Yes, that's what it's like. There's this special privilege tax that we have to pay, which I don't.
Yeah.
Anyway, but my kids said, "Oh, Dad, hang on to it. You might want to do it." And then a couple of years later, I started taking appointed cases, and I just think I appreciate the judges appointing me these things. It gives me something to do and makes me feel relevant.
Yeah, and who else could you get that's any better? Guy that's preached it, foreigner. Hey, I appreciate you coming.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks a lot.